Hi guys, today we're going to be working in our Cricut craft room. I've had a request from a viewer to explain how to ensure that when you cut an envelope on Cricut craft room that it will fit a card that you've either cut on Cricut or you have already got in your stash as a pre-sized card, or you've done it yourself. So that led me on to really looking at the relative and the real dial size, which is really the kind of crux of getting that sizing correct for your envelopes. So your relative and real dial size you will find down here in your image drawer box or drawer or whatever you want to call it, and it's just down at the bottom here. Now 95% of the time I would say that you will want to have your relative button clicked. Now just to be clear, that if it is green that means it's the one that's clicked, and if you then click on the other one that will go green. So you want this one here, which is your relative, to be clicked most of the time. You will use your real dial size but not as much as your relative, so try and keep that on as a default setting. Now to just explain the difference between the two buttons, I've brought up here the paper doll cartridge, and what you want to do in any situation where you've got layers or you've got something that you need to make sure fits together, like an envelope and card that you want to fit together, or a paper doll where you've got layers that you need the clothing or the boots or the hair or whatever to all layer up, then you want to ensure that one, your relative button is pressed, and two, that you set the size that you want that image to be prior to putting anything on the mat. That way you ensure that all your layers are going to follow through and match in correctly, because Cricut Craft Room basically does all the work for you if you have done those two things. And you can play around with the sizing to start with, by just putting your basic image on. Say for example we're going to use the paper doll, then you could pop that on, think 6 inches is too big, let me change it to 5, and fiddle around until you're happy with the base image. Then set your size, the default height down here to whatever you decide, and then put all your layers on. That is really, really imperative to do, because after you've put the layers on it will be almost impossible to alter those layers to be correct. You would be there forever, and why would you? It's just, Cricut's done the work for you, let it do its job kind of thing. So just to go through and demonstrate sort of physically on the screen exactly what this does, let me just click here. We've set our default height at 6 inches and we've got our size here button clicked for relative. So if we then clicked on our paper doll, we will get a 6-inch paper doll. So you can see that will be a precise size in this instance, 6 inches, because top to bottom it can measure that. That is your base image. But now we want to add our accessories and some clothing or some hair or whatever. So as I said, we want to keep that at the 6 inches and we want to make sure that's on relative. So we're going to put a dress down. So instead of getting an actual 6-inch dress, what we get is a dress that is for a 6-inch image, or whatever you put down. If you've got your relative button pressed, what it will do is proportion whatever else you're putting down so that it's proportioned for that size image. So it might not be physically 6 inches, but it's proportioned to fit a 6-inch image, or as I say, whatever size you've put as your default height. And if you look here, when we pop it on, perfect fit. I say dress, I think it's a very short dress, but probably more a top. But anyway, so that would then fit on there nicely. If we changed this, let's click off that, to our real dial size, and then we put down the dress, what we're going to get is a 6-inch dress. So if you look at the difference there, this image is precisely 6 inches high, as you can see up here. So clearly a little bit big. So that's kind of showing you really the difference between those two buttons. So the first one, your relative, is providing your layers, etc., are proportionate to your main image, and then your real dial size is giving you any layer at the real actual size that you have determined in this box. Now you might think, well, when would you use real dial size? Well, for example, in this particular cartridge there are loads of accessories. So if, for example, I put up this camera, I'm going to get a camera that is proportionate because I'm on relative, and therefore is very small because it's proportionate to my 6-inch image. So if I wanted it to be a decent sized camera, because I'm going to do a card that is just a camera, or I'm going to weld it and make a camera shaped card, then I'm going to have to drag this size up to something ridiculous, let's say 11 inches. Okay, perhaps not that ridiculous. Okay, say that size, 8 inches there, to try and make it a decent size. Whereas, make this back down to tiny, if I leave this at 6 inches and I set this to real dial size and then pop my camera on, it is immediately the size that I want it to be. So I don't have to fiddle around, it is the correct size. So it's particularly useful for these teeny weeny little images that you might, as I say, want to use as they are. I also use it a lot for when I'm designing my card. So I've put down an actual card base at the size that I want it. So I think some of you would have seen I go to Georgian Basic Shapes and I pick up a square, get rid of that, and we've set that, say, to 6 inches, which then I have got precisely a 6-inch card. So you want to absolutely be sure of a size, because I know that that's my card base. So I want to cut a layer, or I just want to use it for design purposes, then you need it to be precise and you need it to be accurate, and so you can alter that up here if you need to, and also down here you can set the default height immediately to the right height, and then you can sort that out so you can get that precise size. But as I said, you will comparatively infrequently use your real dial size. You will mostly use your relative size. So now using this information to get onto the cards and envelopes, so dealing with the question that was specifically asked, this is what you need to set in order to get an accurate envelope for your card base. Okay, so the cartridge that was referred to by the question was the Sentimentals cartridge, and I can't recommend that enough for cards and envelopes. Some really nice cards and envelopes on there. So going to what we just were talking about with regard to our settings, what we need to ensure before we even put anything on the mat is that our button here is on relative and that we have set the card height to what we want it to be. So I'm going to make this 5 inches. And then I'm going to click on my card, so let's click on that one here, and we've got a 5-inch card here. Now again, because this is still on the relative, you might see that it's slightly different where you've got sort of design elements or whatever. It may be slightly different up here, it might not be precise, but don't worry, it is all being done proportionately. So you just don't touch it. This is the only part that you need to worry about when you're doing this kind of thing. So then we're going to click off that and we're going to click onto our envelope, and this one here is the matching envelope. So leaving that at 5 inches and at relative, we're just going to click on our envelope, and obviously we would need to rotate it or put it on a different mat, but for the purposes of this video I'm not going to worry. You can see the little cut lines, the tiny cut lines here that are used to help you score and fold along the edges that need to be folded. So you're going to be folding that in, folding that across down to here. That's your envelope flap, and those are the two edges to hold that piece, the back of your envelope, in place. So this piece inside those score lines is the size that your envelope is going to end up. So you want to check that this is going to fit, and look, perfect fit. It's going to fit absolutely beautifully because they've arranged it so that you've got obviously a little bit of a border around each size. That's your halfway point where those little markers are. And so you can see, but just by getting that done relative at the bottom here, it automatically fits. So the next question is, okay, that works easily because those two perhaps were designed to go together, so they automatically will layer, in inverted commas, in that same sense that we were layering our paper doll. But what happens if we have already got a card base? Either we've cut it from here or we've already got one that we've done. So can we still get that to work to the sizing if that's the situation? So it's not something that is already in a Cricut cartridge where you've got the envelope and the card that are designed to go together. This is a separate card and we're just going to cut an envelope and we want to size it to fit that card that we've already got. So taking our mat again, I'm going to go to Creative Cards. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to just go to George, and this is where I'm going to use my actual sizing. And actually, I think it comes out okay. I'm going to do a 6x4 card, and I'm just going to use this box here, and then I can alter it as necessary. But actually, it's come out as 6x4, all but a few pennies. So just change that. So it's just changed that now to precisely 6x4. So that's my card base. That's just, we're not going to be cutting that. That's just so that I can check when we put this envelope down, I can show you that by doing it this way, it will fit automatically to the sizing. So now going to our greeting cards, just as a completely separate, creative cards, as a completely separate cartridge with its own envelopes. Now we've got a very nice envelope here. So we're staying at 6 inches because that's the height of our card. So if we had a pre-cut card that was 7 inches, then change that to 7 inches and have it on relative. And then we're going to click on this envelope here. I'm going to get rid of that drawer, as they call it. And then we're going to bring that down, and you can see that your 4x6 card is going to fit beautifully in there. So now let's try another one. Okay, so I've now changed the card to an 8x8 card base. That's a common size that I use. Now what you will find is that you need to be aware of the shape of your card when you're picking the envelope to fit, because you can make an oblong envelope fit a square card by dragging it and fiddling around. But if you're going to do it the simple way and just using this proportionate relative sizing, then you need to ensure that the shapes of the card match, and you've got a square card with a square envelope and an oblong card with an oblong envelope, and try and keep it proportionate in that way, or try and keep it compatible in that way. So in this case we've got a square card, so we need to look for a square shaped envelope, which we have here. So I'm going to set this to 8 inches and still on relative, and that's my square envelope. I'm just going to click off that, and then I'm going to click on my 8 inch. That's huge. I probably should have used the 6 inch card. And then we're going to click on the card, and then we're just going to drag that across so we can see whether that's going to fit, and clearly it is. So it's about keeping, if you want to easily size your envelope for your card, whatever size it is, then clearly if you've already got a cartridge that has cards and envelopes that goes together, then that's great. And to be honest, that's probably your easiest option, because you can always use your Cricut hide feature as well to remove, like on that card that I put on previously on this one up here, we could use our hide feature and get rid of these, and it would just be a plain card with a scalloped edge in this case, but you can use it and change things slightly to make it more simple if you wanted to, so that would work really well. But if you have already got a card base and you're just cutting a card to fit that, an envelope to fit that, then you need to, one, ensure that this is on relative, and then two, that this is the height of your card, and three, that your envelope is a similar shape, so square with square, oblong with oblong, etc. In order for that to fit. As I said, you can make an oblong card work for a square, an oblong envelope work for a square card, because all you do is you drag one side until it fits. I mean, this is a square envelope and I've just made it oblong. However, obviously I'd have to remove that inner piece, and what you risk is things like this getting too skinny or whatever, so you have to watch certain things, and also you would have to keep coming back in and out with your card to see if it fitted or not, so it's more fiddly to do that. So the simple way is just to find the right shape for the right card. Okay, so I hope this has answered the question, and I also hope that it's helped with regard to what relative and real dial size is. Please, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with everybody. The more shares we get, the more videos I can do for you. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now.